What exactly is post-traumatic stress disorder? This is a mental state that occurs after experiencing a certain traumatic event. But after all, the post-apocalyptic world of The Last of Us is rich in such events, isn't it? Why didn't Ellie develop PTSD earlier? Given that we do not have the opportunity to conduct a full-fledged interview, we will be guided by what we have. It is known for sure that Ellie does not remember her parents and spent her childhood in a military boarding school. She experienced the first conscious loss of a loved one in adolescence. In this case, we are talking about Riley and the events of the Left Behind add-on. Then she found a father figure in Joel, whom she almost lost twice during the first game. I say twice, because in addition to the almost fatal fall on the rebar, Joel wanted to leave Ellie in the care of Tommy in Jackson. The girl reacted to this with undisguised anger and resentment, which speaks of the great value of Joel and the resistance to just let him out of her life. This whole chain of facts can be reduced to the fact that before the moment of the trauma event, Ellie already had emotional and family problems in her childhood. I won't delve into this topic in more detail, but the bottom line is that the potential loss of Joel definitely causes a girl more horror than meeting the infected or the risk of being eaten by a cannibal. The death of Joel, whom Ellie was so afraid of losing, left a heavy imprint on her psyche. This, and the fact that his murder happened right in front of her eyes, allows us to define the event as traumatic and capable of leading to the formation of PTSD. However, information about the presence of trauma alone is not enough to diagnose PTSD. So let's go through the symptoms. Let's start with the most obvious, intrusive memories. For example, if a person survived a fire in his own house, then after returning to normal life, he may begin to experience obsessive thoughts that his new house is about to catch fire. Returning to Ellie, we see two events that can be identified as triggers. The first is the metallic noise from falling farm utensils in the barn on the farm. Similar to the sound of a golf club hitting Joel's head, the sound makes Ellie fully relive the events of that unfortunate day and sends her into a panic attack. The second event does not seem like an intrusive memory at first glance, so it is worth noting that panic and freeze are not the only reactions to the trigger event. At the end of the game, when one of the heroines is about to let go of the other, the blood from the wound on Ellie's hands brings back the memories of Joel's death. In this case, the intrusive memory triggers a massive adrenaline rush and triggers the fight-or-flight response. As a result, Ellie, who has lost a lot of blood and is exhausted, experiences a strong sense of anger, enters a combat trance, and her rational part completely gives way to the emotional. Ellie's diary reveals that after re-experiencing a traumatic experience, she feels physical pain and finds it extremely difficult to sleep. Insomnia, as well as re-experiencing traumatic experiences in the form of nightmares, are fairly common symptoms of PTSD. Ellie's diary, on closer inspection, generally gives quite a lot of information about how the heroine has PTSD. From the notes in it, you can understand that she is extremely unwilling to remember the trauma or talk about it, even when she is in the safest possible environment for this. This open reluctance tells us that Ellie has a second common symptom of the disorder, cognitive avoidance. Ellie's diary reveals that after re-experiencing a traumatic experience, she feels physical pain and finds it extremely difficult to sleep. Insomnia, as well as re-experiencing traumatic experiences in the form of nightmares, are fairly common symptoms of PTSD. Ellie's diary, on closer inspection, generally gives quite a lot of information about how the heroine has PTSD. From the notes in it, you can understand that she is extremely unwilling to remember the trauma or talk about it, even when she is in the safest possible environment for this. This open reluctance tells us that Ellie has a second common symptom of the disorder, cognitive avoidance. In PTSD, avoidance can also be behavioral. A victim of sexual assault, for example, may begin to avoid all men altogether for fear of being raped again. In the case of Ellie, such a symptom seems to be absent, but it is worth deliberately emphasizing the phrase seemingly. Indeed, behavioral avoidance may well be Ellie's desire to live outside of Jackson, away from Joel's house and any people who knew him. Alas, This topic is only touched upon in the game in passing and there is not enough information to draw any conclusions. So let's leave this question open. Otherwise, Ellie looks like a completely functional person in terms of behavior and even continues to play the guitar. Ellie and Abby did not know each other until the moment of the injury. Abby brutally murdered Joel in front of Ellie. As a reaction to the negative experience, Ellie had a vindictive idea directed directly at Abby. Revenge, as a fundamental motive for the relationship between Ellie and Abby, in PTSD performs not only the role of an equalizer of injustice. It is often vital for people with traumatic experiences to punish their abusers, as this threatens their very identity. In other words, if I let go of the object of revenge, I will lose myself as a person. This is what Tommy presses on during a return visit to the farm. He directly uses Ellie's words "I'll make her pay" to induce guilt and fear. He wants to remind her that if she doesn't go after Abby a second time, she'll go back on her own words. Renounce yourself. For this reason, initially flustered and not ready to leave what she has, Ellie packs up and leaves the farm simply by telling Dina that she can't do it any other way. But why Ellie lets Abby go at the end is hard to say for sure. According to one possible version, the physical release in this scene symbolizes the forgiveness of Joel and the internal release of the idea of bats associated with his death. While this may very well be true, it is a dubious undertaking to say anything for certain without additional information. Moreover, at that moment, Ellie was clearly not capable of rational thinking. It can be assumed that even after releasing Abby at the end of the game, Ellie will still periodically return to her search and try to kill her again, since her PTSD will not go anywhere.